America's enemies continue to make mischief while we are worried about Ukraine. That includes Iran. New reports from the UK show a deadly shipment of uranium seized at Heathrow Airport was en route to two Iranians based in the United Kingdom. Why would Iranians in the United Kingdom want uranium, nuclear material? Well, uranium would allow just about any two-bit terrorist to make a dirty bomb and explode it in downtown London. Airport sensors at London's Heathrow Airport detected uranium inside a package of scrap metal. Right now, it's not clear if the substance was deliberately concealed, although why people are sending scrap metal via airmail or air freight is unclear. Kind of questionable, right? Why would you fly scrap metal with uranium inside from Pakistan to a group of Iranians via Oman living in the United Kingdom? Does not take a rocket scientist to figure it out. Tracy Walder is here, former staff operations officer in the CIA's counterterrorism center. I look at that map, and Pakistan borders Iran as well.
Yes, that's correct. So this is what I spent the entirety of my time at the CIA doing, was weapons of mass destruction to terrorists. And what concerns me most actually is where this came from, which is Pakistan, and really A.Q. Khan, who is sort of the godfather of transporting uranium to sort of nefarious state actors like Iran, North Korea, China, and the like. He is from Pakistan. He's since been arrested, but that was the network and the syndicate that he was running. And so really what gives me concern is then the purpose, right? This wasn't for necessarily research purposes, given where it came from. I'm concerned as to
you're being generous. Now, look, 20 plus years since 9/11. I remember in the aftermath of 9/11, and you do as well when you were doing this work, about all of the concerns of a dirty bomb and what that could mean and what that could do. Have we sort of lost sight of those fears, and now people like Iran are taking advantage of it?
You know, I think you're absolutely right, Leland. I mean, that was my job, was to stop these dirty bomb attacks. And I'm proud to say that I was able to do some of that. And I think we have sort of lost sight of this. And I think we have sort of lost sight of how easy really something like this is to do. I think the good news here is that at Heathrow Airport, the sensors worked, right? The sensors went off and showed that there was uranium in this. But this is really one of the first times since really just, about the 5-year time frame after 9/11 that I've heard of something like this. And it's really concerning to folks to realize how easy it is to do something like this.
Yeah, I got 30 seconds or so. I'll try to be quick in the question. In that, are we clear-eyed enough on what Iran wants to do? I think about the attacks that have been stopped, assassination attempt on John Bolton, the chemical attack in Germany, the possible assassination of the Saudi ambassador to the United States, bombing in France of an anti-Iranian meeting attended by former President Trump. I mean, there's this list of bad acts. They're shipping uranium and nuclear materials to Iranians living in the United Kingdom. And yet everybody sort of looks at the Iranians and go, oh, well, that's just them.
Look, I'm not someone who was ever for the Iranian nuke deal. So I do think in a way the Iranians are kind of getting this free pass. And a lot of what they're doing is taking on sort of these Russian characteristics. If you remember with Alexander Litvinenko in London, him being radioactive. And that's what's becoming concerning. Instead of seeing these like sort of state-sponsored attacks, we're seeing these kind of one-off Lone Ranger, but at the behest of the Iranian government. Yeah. And that's really concerning to me.
It's also crazy that this hasn't raised more alarm bells. We saw this story and thought, holy cow, we have to get Tracy. And it sort of just kind of filtered off into the ether, probably because of the 20 years since 9/11. It's good to see you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.